I was driving on backcountry roads when I came to a stop sign. Left or right was my only two options. I looked both directions, and all I could see was a windy, hilly, two-lane road each way. It was actually a dangerous intersection, maybe 100 feet of visibility before the curves really just hit everything. It was a beautiful area, lots of trees, but I was forced to pick a direction. And I chose, and I continued a scenic drive that took me to where I wanted to go. But sitting at that stop sign reminded me of a time of a different crossroads, a time when my business came to a complete stop. And this wasn't normal. In the construction industry, it's not unusual to have a gap in work. Typically there's something lined up though. You're waiting on a product or maybe the right timing of the customer or something, but you at least see something coming down the road. But this time, nothing. Nothing at all was lined up, and nothing even looked promising. And it was like sitting at that stop sign, looking each direction on that winding, hilly road, and really wondering which way to go, questioning if any chosen direction would end up where I wanted. Being short on work is one thing, but when you've had several major surprise expenditures, and now your major clients who've always paid on time, they begin to fall behind, and you've been, really questioning, is this path really worth it? And here's a part that baffled me. My business had just doubled in revenue nearly overnight. And to handle the influx, I hired triple the people to get the work done. Everyone was so busy. Yeah, you would have thought, I'd just been flush with cash. But having more work and more employees meant I needed more equipment. And most of those employees weren't to their full potential yet. And some even new to the industry. So it took a lot of time, money, and energy to train them. I'm Brian Hill. I've owned multiple businesses for the last 20 years, and I've been at that stop sign more than once, staring at the winding roads, unable to see the path ahead, having to choose, what direction to go. This is chapter 17 called Windy, Hilly Roads. And it's from my book, Business is a Journey, Not a Destination, and this journey is your life. And I'm about to tell you about the stop sign that almost ended my business and how I decided which road to take. When the work started to slow down, most of the confident, stable employees saw the writing on the wall, and they found other jobs quickly. The remaining ones with less skills were let go as the work trickled down. The remaining small number of guys looked at me to fix the problem, as their work weeks got shorter and shorter. Having a continual line of work coming in is where, the rubber meets the road. The work was not coming. I had nothing lined up. The phone quit ringing. So the dead end sign seemed to be coming quick, and, I did not know what to do. I was at the end of my rope, or stick a fork in me. I was done. Raise the white flag, throw in the towel, whatever metaphor that came to mind, I used it. I was sick of playing this game. I wanted to do something else, but what? I've always enjoyed my job and never thought about doing anything else. And, the job never felt like work for me. Even though I'd put in long hours in the extreme heat or even the extreme cold. And, then I'd come home, and most of the night I would do paperwork or marketing, planning. And I never thought about doing anything else until now. I was sitting, right here at my desk, frustrated, wondering what to do. And then I stumbled upon a Word document titled Resume. And, it was my resume. I put it together several years ago at another low time in my business. And just to reminisce, I opened the document to see, if I was employable. And there in front of me was I'd say impressive resume, list of areas of expertise like account acquisition and retention, branding, marketing, coaching, training, business to business and business to customer sales, just to name a few. At that time I had 15 years experience in that area. And, then I had an idea, I would love to hire someone like that. And I bet some notable companies would give a impressive benefit package to someone like that. So I began to check websites and job boards, and I was correct. There were many solid companies offering impressive compensation packages for these areas of expertise. Some of them were even offering really more than double what I was making a year. So I found myself, at this stop sign wondering, do I turn right and keep battling this thing called business ownership? Or do I turn left and pursue a new unknown road called being an employee? Being an employee sounds safe, and it was, more lucrative now in the short term, and it probably contained less stress and hours. But, it has its own concerns with it. And then it hit me, I'm not interested in building someone else's dream. I'm interested in advancing myself toward my goal of building something that endures. I'm not interested in, per se, the safe route. I want the thrill of the adventure by seeing and learning new things. When I arrived at that stop sign in life, I had to choose a direction. I knew that in both directions, the road was windy, hilly, and with many unknowns. One way might have seemed to be straight, maybe the straight, easy road, once you got past that curve, but it's never the case, especially if you're wired to do something else. I've continued to choose the road of business ownership, and sometimes I question my, sanity for doing it. Even since that time, there have been potholes, detours, windy, hilly roads, stop signs along the way. So here's what I need you to understand. The roads of entrepreneurship, they're winding and hilly. You can't see what's around the corner, can't see around that next curve. And at every stop sign, both directions look equally uncertain. That's just the way it is. I was at that literal stop sign on those back country roads. I couldn't see more than 100 feet in either direction, because all the curves and trees and stuff. But I had to choose if I wanted to keep moving. And, I chose correctly, and it took me where I wanted to go. At the business stop sign, with that resume open, those job offers were real, double the income starting. Both roads windy and hilly. Employment isn't necessarily the straight, easy road, especially if you're wired to build something. You'll just be miserable navigating someone else's windy path. You'd be grumbling like everyone else that goes to work every day. Business ownership isn't the adventurous road if you don't know your why. You'll just be lost on curves with no compass. The question isn't which road is easier. The question is, which dream are you building? When you're at the stop sign, and you'll be there a lot, that why that we talked about earlier is the only compass on the winding roads ahead. And here's what you need to do right now. Remember your why and even starting a business in the first place. And if you haven't done this, write it down, lock it down. Because, when you're at a stop sign staring at two winding, hilly roads, you can't see around the curves. And that why tells you which direction to turn. Second, accept that both roads are winding. Don't fool yourself into thinking that one is straight and easy. employment has its own potholes and detours. I had a friend just tell me, the business he's working at, they just cut his pay and they just do that. So, and I've had other friends that have just lost these jobs that seem so secure. So, both roads are unknown. A business has its own curves and hills. Both have unknowns. So pick the one that is yours. Third, find the encouragement needed to continually press on, and be sure to look, around at the scenery as you drive toward your dream. Because that's the journey. That's your life. The ups and downs, the curves in the road. It's part of the adventure called your life. I've navigated many winding, hilly roads since that moment. More stop signs, more curves, where I couldn't see around, revenue that doubled, but that cash disappeared, employees who left, clients who fell behind, moments where, thinking of quitting would have been the smarter move. But, I know which road is mine, because I'm not building someone else's dream. I'm building mine. Even if I can't see what's around the curve, you will hit stop signs. Revenue will deceive you. Cash will disappear. Employees will leave. Work will dry up. You'll wonder which direction to turn. And, but if you remember your why, the reason you started this journey in the first place, you'll know which road to take. This is chapter 17 from my book, Business is a Journey, Not a Destination, and this journey is your life. This chapter title is called Windy, Hilly Roads, and that's what you're navigating, and your why is your compass. If you've ever been at that stop sign, staring at the roads you can't see around, wondering which way to turn, this one's for you. Hit that like button and subscribe. I'll be releasing all the chapters from my book here. I'm Brian Hill. The roads are winding, the hills are steep, and you can't see around the curves. But if you know your why, you'll choose the right direction, and you'll enjoy the scenery along the way. Next chapter, we'll talk about really just asking for directions on your journey. So keep navigating those windy roads. The adventure isn't over, and it's really just getting started. Thanks for watching.